Chapter 43-42. Hue Yuangua, I didn't take it, just under this melt, you want to take it yourself. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, pressed his temper, and said calmly. Did not get it. You said you didn't get it. What proof? An ultimate master heard a cold hum, and stared at Jian Wushuang, disdainfully asked. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes, coldness appeared again in his eyes, and asked, How do you want me to prove? The ultimate master immediately heard a sneer and sneered, saying, It's very simple. Take out your fortune and check for us. If there is no fire fruit, we will believe you. Jian Wushuang heard the words, his eyes flickered, his eyes turned to look at others, and he asked indifferently, Do you mean the same? Facing Jian Wushuang's gaze, those masters didn't have any fear, instead they laughed back and said, Okay, hand over Qian Kunji, let's check. Yes, if there is no fire element, we will naturally let you go, it will not be difficult. Well, boy, I warn you not to play tricks, so many of us, if you don't hand over the ring, today is your day of burying your bones. The threat of smirk continued to come, and the sword replied without expression on both sides, I explained it one last time. I said that I didn't take it or I didn't take it. If you don't believe it, you can go and check it under the melt. After that, Jian Wushuang turned around and stepped on with his right foot, and then planned to leave. Want to leave without surrendering Hue Yuangua? Not so easy. There must be a secret method to pass this flame magma. We captured him and forced to ask these secret method. Stop this seat. An ultimate master is Xiu Charm, wearing a yellow robe, twisting his eyebrows, grabbing his right hand, and holding out his right hand, grabbing Jian Jianshu's shoulder. This catch of the wind is full of divine power. If Jian Wushuang is really the second-level master, I'm afraid that under this catch, even if not dead, there will be no combat power. Just because I suspect that I took Hue Yuangua, it hurts the killer. Also, you asked for it. Jian Wushuang shook his head and sighed softly in his heart. Suddenly, a violent sword force rose into the sky with Jian Wushuang as the center, and it was horrifying in all directions. In this fierce sword atmosphere, the entire Huayang star domain is like disaster coming, and it is booming instantly. Next moment, Jian Wushuang made a sword with his right hand, and turned his head towards the ultimate master who grabbed him. An open sky Jianmang cut out instantly, tearing the void to 1,000 feet. This is the ultimate master, who was originally captured by Xiong Jian Wushuang, suddenly changed his face, and his eyes were astonished like ghost. But it's too late to make a temporary move. He watched with all his eyes, this extremely beautiful Jianmang, constantly enlarged in his pupil, and finally severely chopped on his god body collapses. Destroyed. Sword spike. The audience instantly turned into a dead silence. Everyone was staring at Jian Wushuang, his eyes full of fear. Until a long time later, I saw a tall and burly ultimate master, stepped out, Shensheng said, Don't be afraid. Hue Yuangua must be in this man's hands. Let's take a shot together to kill this person and get Hue Yuangua. The voice fell, the others looked at each other, and then bit their teeth, focusing on the head. That's right, let's do it together. No matter how strong this person is, but the second level dominates Xiu Wei, it can never be our opponent. Kill. For a while, there were dozens of dominating the strong, even including the ultimate invincible, and at the same time killing swordsmen. Countless magical powers blasted out and smashed towards the sword Wushuang. Jian Wushuang saw this, and his expression became extremely cold instantly. You look for death. Jian Wushuang Mori opened his mouth. Wu weeping sword appeared instantly on swordless hands. Swordless man's black hair flew up. One sword was cut off and he shattered, countless magical powers smashed at him. Then he flew out toward the dozens of masters. Kill the strong. A one-by-one killing has begun. The sword light is vertical and horizontal, the sword shadow is like weaving, and it is continuously cut off in the void. Countless blood descends, and the entire Yangyang starfield has become a field of Shura where the sea of blood floats. The sword unparalleled sword is completely opened, just like the bloodthirsty Shura. It is ruthless to slash with a sword take away a life. For the current sword Wushuang, Beating and killing the ordinary master in the same realm is even easier than crushing an ant. No, don't kill me. Escape. I don't want Hua Yuangwa, let me go. Countless people are shocked to find that they regard them as soft persimmons they can handle. At this moment, they are like killing gods, killing their lives, just like killing pigs and dogs. Suddenly, wailing sounds begged one after another. The sword Wu Shuang looked indifferent, and the Wu weapon sword in his hand didn't leave anything. In a short span of time, the whole number was dominated by 10 and was completely killed by Jian Wushuang. In the end, there was only one tall woman who was tall and charming, curled up in a ball, her body trembling, and she looked at Jian Wushuang in fear. Just now, she looked at her invincible brother Tuoba, who was split into two by the black man in front of her. The sword had no sides and no expression, and approached her step by step. As soon as he left the Temple of Life, his mind made a decision. This time, he left the Temple of Life for his escape. But once you take the shot, you need to use thunder to get rid of it. Never allow anything to reveal your identity. No, don't come here, let me go. The glamorous woman looked at Jian Wushuang, who was approaching her step by step. Go to death. Jian Wushuang's eyes were lowered. At this moment, he had already collected the Wu Cry Excalibur, and the blood-colored sword awns on his fingers kept condensing. The glamorous woman looked at the sword without hands, and the horrifying sword mangling turned her mind crazy. Just as the glamorous woman was in danger of life or death, she suddenly thought something, and suddenly shouted, "Sir, are you looking for the innate Dinghua Qi? I know there are a lot of innate Dinghua Qi except here." After speaking, she stared at Jian Wushuang tightly, daring to let go of any delicate expression on Jian Wushuang's face, and straightened her drums. In her extremely hopeful eyes. Okay. Finally, Jian Wushuo paused, looked down at the paralyzed woman sitting on the ground with paralyzed chest, and asked her calmly, "How do you know that I'm looking for innate fire?" The enchanting woman looked at Jian Wushuang, who stopped her footsteps, and breathed a sigh of relief. She knew that she was right. Chapter 43-43. The enchanting woman did not dare to sell her, and looked at Xiong Zhenshuang and quickly explained, "My Excellency, I'm just making random guesses, because since you don't see the fire element fruit, you have to go under this cave magma, then it must be under this cave magma, there is something more appealing to you, and either method you practiced is exactly sensitive to the firepower induction. Combined with the situation of the Huayang star domain, you guessed that you are looking for congenital fire." After speaking, the charming woman didn't dare to breathe and looked at Jian Wushuang with a stunned look. It was not until a moment later that she heard Jian Wushuang's voice faintly sound. "You have an exquisite heart." Jian Wushuang's slightly jaw head was considered to verify the speculation of this charming woman. After a pause, he asked, "You said before, you know where there is still a lot of innate fire, but seriously?" The enchanting woman heard the words, and there was a sudden ecstasy on her face. She knew that since Jian Wushuang didn't do it for the first time, she asked him, which means that her life was finally saved. Taking a deep breath, the glamorous woman congratulated, "My Excellency, I am from the Holy Land. There is a huge fire pool in our Holy Land, and there is a large amount of innate fire." Jian Wushuang heard the words, and narrowed his eyes suddenly, and smiled and said, "Oh? You mean, let me go to your holy place to get the breath of innate fire? At that time, I will follow you to the holy place. I'm afraid it's easy to get in, but hard to get out." This. The enchanting woman heard the words, and immediately knew that her speech was a little naive. She thought about her teeth and said, "Sir, I know that there is a secret passage in the Holy Land leading to the congenital Dinghua Qi. If you believe me, I can assure you that I will never leak your news. After entering the Holy Land, I will take you to the congenital Dinghua without knowing it." Jian Wushuang heard no reply, but turned to look at the distant sky. His thoughts flashed on his face. He has heard of the Holy Land. According to the historical records in the Temple of Life, the Holy Ghost Shrine was one of the top forces in the entire universe before the 10,000 Chaos era, and it has a 10 very glorious past, but with the spirit after the ancestral spirit of the Holy Land fell, the Holy Land of the Holy Land could not stand up. In the recent 10,000 Chaos eras, it has continued to decline, and was even forced to move away from the depths of the universe. came into the wild wilderness of the universe. The Holy Spirit Holy Land is said to be an immortal holy land. The ancient Taoism has already been reduced to a third-class force in the universe. It is said that the Holy Spirit Holy Land now has two supremacy. Even if there is an extreme, it is only the lowest. It's a stretch. After a moment, Jian Wushuang retracted his gaze and looked back at the charming woman again, and said lightly, "What's your name?" "Heart, sir, you can call me Heart." The enchanting woman quickly returned. Jian Wushuang nodded his head and said casually, "Let's go, dominate your heart and take me to your holy shrine." "Yes." The enchanting woman couldn't help it, and nodded quickly. Jian Wushuang gave her a slight glance, and said, "Don't be too happy, after going to Ling Di Holy Land, I hope you didn't lie to me, because you can't afford to lie to me." The enchanting woman heard the words, and couldn't help but feel cold, and quickly bowed her head and said, "Dare not." Jian Wushuang said, "Let this heart dominate the way," and swept away towards the Holy Spirit Holy Land. According to the Lord of the Heart, the Holy Land of Holy Spirit is not too far from here, and you can arrive in the spacecraft in more than a month. Jian Wushuang is not in a hurry. While letting Xinshin dominate the cosmic boat to lead the way, he sits down on his knees, silently refining the bronze ancient tripod. The difficulty of refining the bronze ancient tripod is unprecedented. Since he left the 5 planetary domains, the refining that he perseveres every day is only worth 1% of refining. Now he can only do it barely. Do not let the bronze ancient tripod escape. In the rest of the month, blink of an eye. Soon, a red planet appeared in front of Jian Wushuang. This planet is where the holy shrine is located. "Don't abandon your lord, the Holy Land is here," he whispered. Jian Wushuang heard his words, slowly opened his eyes, and a faint flicker passed from his eyes. In these days, Dominions is quite well behaved, like a tamed kitten, staying quietly beside Jian Wushuang, afraid to speak to disturb Jian Wushuang. "Let's go." Exhaling a stale air, Jian Wushuang stood up and left the spacecraft. This time when he came to the Holy Land, there was no fear in Jian Wushuang's heart. It doesn't matter whether this heart will dominate the Holy Land people after he reaches the Holy Land. Not to mention whether there is a supreme existence in this holy place. Even if there is a supreme existence, today the sword is unparalleled, and he would not dare to say that he is superior to the supreme, but if he is going to go, he will not be able to keep the ordinary supreme. After closing the spacecraft, Jian Wushuang and Jixin dominated the Lingyan Holy Land side by side. First, the homage of the Hajj greeted him, and then he looked at Xiong Wushuang and wondered, "Elder mind, what is this?" My heart dominated with a flat expression, and replied, "This is my old man. At my invitation, please come to see me as a guest. You don't need to take care of it. Let's go." It can be seen that the domineering heart is dominated by the lingering Holy Land. After she finished speaking, the 2 third-ranked masters stopped asking and let go. Entering the Lingbai Holy Land, 9 peaks of the heavenly mountains came into view. Jian Wushuang looked at the Lingbai Holy Land at will, joking casually, "Are you still the elder of the Lingbai Holy Land?" My heart dominated with a bitter smile and replied, "Without abandoning your lord, as long as the Holy Land is the top and ultimate master, you can serve as elders, and it is not worth mentioning in front of you." Jian Wushuang nodded and stopped talking. Along the way, the two met with a lot of disciples in the Holy Land. They could see that their hearts were dominated in the Holy Land of Holy Land. The disciples stopped when they saw the hearts of the Holy Land. "Congratulations. My heart is dominated by a docile gentleman in front of the sword without double sides, but in the presence of these disciples of the Holy Ghost, they immediately changed their secondary expressions. Don't abandon your excellency, the congenital Ding Huoqi is just behind these 9 peaks and is guarded by the elders of Jiufeng separately. After 3 days, it is my turn. You go to my cabin to rest. After 3 days, when I am on rotation, you will be taken to the congenital Dinghua pond. Can you see it? After there were no disciples in the Holy Land nearby, the Master of the Heart suddenly lowered his head and bent slightly, said congratulatingly. Chapter 43-44. Jian Wu's eyes flickered and he groaned slightly before answering, Yes. Then, the master of the heart took the sword Wushuang, headed towards the Lingji Jiufeng, and walked towards the 7th peak on the left. Before the two reached the 7th peak, they saw at the foot of the mountain a big man like a tower, who was constantly pacing, from time to stop and look out. When he saw Jian Wushuang coming to dominate later, there was a stubborn smile on his face, and he strode over. Well, worries, this time you go to Yangyang Starfield to compete for the fire fruit, are you okay? When the master of the heart saw the towering man, his eyes flashed with disgust, and he returned with a cold face. Elder Laoshan, if I have something, can you still see me now? The Iron Tower man who was called Elder Laoshan suddenly heard the words, and then scratched his head. He said, "Hey, what you said?" The heart-minded expression of the domineering heart is cold. After he said, "Let us go, I'll go back to the peak first." Elder Laoshan nodded, just as he flickered aside. When he was about to let his heart dominate, his face suddenly changed slightly, shouting, "Slow." Zun Xin dominated his footsteps for a while. Xiaomai frowned slightly, and asked, "Langshan, what do you want to do?" I saw the thick smile on the elder Laoshan's face slowly converge, and looked at Jian Wushuang with a bad look. His voice was somber, hesitant. "Who is this guy?" On his face, there was still the thick and honest look of half a minute ago. Hearing the questioning, Sushin dominated his face suddenly changed slightly, a headache, and secretly said in his heart, "I knew that there would be no good things when encountering this sister-in-law." After taking a deep breath, Zhanxin said as usual, "This is a former friend. I was specially invited to come and meet me. Is there any problem?" "A former friend?" Together. Elder Laoshan squinted his eyes, and a maze of green beans flashed in his small eyes. Then he looked up at Jian Wushuang and asked coldly, "Boy, I ask you, what is your relationship with Elder Xin? All the women living in the 7th peak are you doing?" As soon as this word came to an end, Jisin dominated and looked at Jian Wushuang, winked at Jian Wushuang, and wanted Jian Wushuang to follow her words. Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent. When he heard the words, he looked at him and said calmly, "What's the matter with you? What does it matter to me?" The elder Laoshan laughed suddenly and said, "Boy, Elder Shinshin is a lord who the Lord is going to hand in to me. Do you say that it has anything to do with me?" Jian Wushuang heard the words and was about to speak again. "Enough. Shishan, don't say I haven't become an acquaintance with you. Even if I am an acquaintance with you, my personal affairs can't be helped by you." Having said that, she grabbed the cuff of sword unparalleled. "Don't abandon your excellency, let's go." The heart dominated the elder Laoshan, and took Wu Zhenshuang and hurried toward the 7th peak. Behind the two, the cup of heart beat the elder Laoshan who broke away, and his face suddenly became extremely iron. He stared fiercely at the back of Jian Wushuang and Shinshin, his fist rattled. "Bitch, you wait, this one wants you to surrender under me sooner or later." There was a touch of ugliness on the face of elder Laoshan, and after watching the film engraving time of Jian Wushuang and Shinshin, he snorted and left. Waiting for the elder Laoshan to go far away, the heart-minded master who has reached the mid-mountain position finally let out a long sigh of relief, and quickly released the cuff of the sword unparalleled, saying with some sincerity, "Don't abandon your excellency, it's really helpless to offend just now, and I ask you to plead guilty." Before Jian Wushuang was in Yangyang Starfield, the pictures of one person and one sword slaughtering everyone were vivid. She was afraid that Jian Wushuang would be unhappy, so she would open a killing ring in Lingdi Holy Land. If that was the case, there would be no one to block Jian Wushuang in this huge Lingdi star area. Anyway, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and asked casually, "He is dominated by the heart, the elder Laoshan just now, is your companion?" Hearing the master, he sighed, and said helplessly, "The priest still can't talk about it, but the Lord made his own claim and gave him to me. Speaking of which, my heart dominated the expression for a while." Jian Wushuang nodded and no longer asked, for him, as long as he entered the congenital Dinghua after 3 days, and took away the congenital Dinghua. As for any love or hatred between the two, he did not want to understand and felt interest. The 7th peak is several million feet high. The two went up while chatting, but the speed was not fast. It took only a few minutes to reach the summit. This 7th peak is just like the elder Laoshan said. Looking up, as long as the disciples can be seen, They are all heroic female disciples. When they see the elders who want to come cold in the weekdays, they bring men. Entering the 7th peak, the expression suddenly staggered. Who is that man? Are they good old friends with elders out there? No wonder the elders have been hesitant to accept Elder Laushan. If this man looks good, he is indeed better than the rough Elder Laushan, but it seems to be lower. The 2nd grade dominates the repair. The Elder of Shinshin is the ultimate dominator. This man is not worthy of the Elder of Shinshin. The sound of a mosquito-like discussion sounded, and my heart dominated the flushing of the face. Noise. Don't you need to practice? Chew your tongue here. Pan Shin dominated his face, and said loudly. Suddenly, these female disciples who were sacred to the sacred place were shocked, and quickly became birds and beasts scattered. After doing all this, the Master of the Heart secretly glanced at Jian Wushuang. Seeing Jian Wushuang's face as usual, without any emotional fluctuations, he could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. I just don't know why, she didn't know something, and where did she come from disappointed? Turning left and right, Zhu Shinshin dominated Sword Wushuang, came to a quiet house with red walls and green tiles, and the entrance was filled with purple bamboo, and said, "Don't abandon your excellency, this is my room. You are here to rest and rest, that is, I will order later and not allow others to approach and disturb. 3 days later, when I take the rotation of the congenital Dinghua, I will show you to the congenital Dinghua." Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, his look did not fluctuate. Then do not abandon your excellency, you have a good rest here, I have to go and tell the Lord Sovereign about the Yangyang star domain. Having said that, I was afraid that Jian Wushuang would think more about it, and then quickly added, "Don't abandon your excellency, you can rest assured that I won't say anything about you. Go on." Jian Wushuang swayed, signaled nothing, and then gently opened the wooden door of this quiet house. Chapter 43-45. I saw that the sword light that used starlight to destroy the sky and destroy the earth was almost just an instantaneous time, and then it broke into the palm of the white-haired indifferent figure. Immediately afterwards, a shocking scene happened. This mighty sword that was infinitely horrible and indescribable was split on the palm of this white-haired indifferent figure, as white as jade, and suddenly burst into sparks like a childish dance sword on the towering Mount Tai. But even this scar of the palm cannot be caused. This white-haired indifferent figure refused to let it go. Immediately afterwards, a low, icy voice heard from the figure's mouth. "Are you embroidering the needle? Who is this soft sword to kill?" The next moment, the white-haired indifferent figure closed with 5 fingers, and the star sword suddenly broke, making an overwhelming clicking sound. Immediately, countless starlights shattered and mighty powers were wiped out. This starlight sword turned directly into powder, and the elder Phase Yan, when this white-haired indifferent figure appeared, the cricket on his face had already been replaced by fear. I saw that he took a sigh of air conditioning and did not dare to pass the channel. King of 9 and 9 calamities. The shadow of a person's famous tree, no matter before or after the supreme, the fame of the king of the 9 calamities was all he killed with a punch and a kick. When Jian Wushuang created a new myth in the universe, King Zhoujia also continued his legend in the ancient sky. If it is said that if there is no sword unparalleled, the king of 9 calamities is the most in the universe during this time. King of the 9th calamity, shouldn't you be in the ancient road of Shinkong now? Elder Feishian watched King Zhoujia tightly and snored. King Zhoujia was expressionless, and said indifferently, "You're called Feishian, aren't you? What kind of ability is it to be a supreme master to bully the ultimate master? If you have the ability, fight with this seat." "No. King 9 calamities, listen to me explain." He didn't even wait for him to finish. The king of Josai stepped on the foot, directly across thousands of miles, and his right palm was raised and photographed towards the elder Phase Yan. This palm comes out. The heavens and the earth turned upside down, the sun and the moon were suspended, chaos reopened, the entire space was destroyed, turned into a storm center, and countless space debris swept up, as if the wind was rolling down, surging and slamming in all direction. "King of the 9 calamities, you deceive people too much." Seeing that his face sank, Elder Phase Yan retreated backwards while splitting out several star swords in succession, intending to kill and stop the King of Nine Calamity. Ants. The King of Jojia indifferently opened his mouth, but he came hard to carry the star sword, rushed to the elder Phase Yan, and the palm of his white as jade was pressed down severely, and smashed into the white sword. A roar exploded. This magic sword with the power of the ultimate power of the rule, under the palm of the 9 kings of the calamity, seemed to be unable to bear it, and issued a wailing sound, and released from the elder Phasian. And the elder Phase Yan, his face turned pale suddenly, like a shooting star, instantly fell from 1,000,000 miles high, hit a star fiercely, and even the huge impact force directly shocked the star it's broken. With just one palm, elder Phase Yan lost. After taking this palm, King Jojia no longer manages it. With the elder Phasian in his palm, the body is on the verge of collapse, and naturally there is the ordinary supreme of the life shrine to solve him. He slowly turned around and looked at Jian Wushuang. His original cold face gradually melted, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The sword is unparalleled, it's been a long time. Jian Wushuang looked at the king of Jujie, and sighed in his heart, this guy is still as strong as ever. Long time no see. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly at him. The two of them had black hair and black, cool and handsome, and their eyes were clear, and the other hit white snow, with white hair hanging down at will, as if the untouched aunt shot the fairy with deep eyes. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Jiewang are also the perfect level of life. They are also from the Temple of Life. They also have their own legendary epics, but this universe and this era are recognized as peerless Tianjiao. Under the shadow of the two, everything on the battlefield became overshadowed. The sword is unparalleled, you can use a body of master to push the supreme divine realm to this field with your own strength. I was not as good as you. Zhu Jiewang smiled lightly, and then came down from the starry sky with a negative hand. Speaking of which, this seat is now more and more looking forward to what you will look like when you break through to the supreme. At that time, this seat will definitely compare with you again. Jian Wushuang smiled when he heard the words, but did not answer, but the words turned and asked, Zhu Zhejiang, when did you come out of the ancient road in the sky? The King of Nine Calamity narrowed his eyes, a flash of narrowness flashed in his eyes, and some of them quipped rarely, your swords and swords have all received invitations to the grand event of the nations in the ancient road of the starry sky. Will this seat not be available, then you not bad. After speaking, he turned his right hand, and a piece of white jade appeared in his hand. This white jade is similar to what Jian Wushuang got from Master Lan, but at the edge of this white jade, there is another layer of gold thread. Jian Wushuang heard the words and could not help but said, King of the 9 robbers, why do you like it more than me? The Zhu Jiewang snorted and said nothing. Speaking of which, he has always been arrogant and indifferent. He never likes to talk to others, but I don't know why. Before the sword has 2 sides, he will always unconsciously reveal the childlike mind. Passing from the side of Jian Wushuang, the king of Jojia looked up at Supreme Gafu, arching his hand, Master Gafu. Gafu Supreme sat high for 9 days and nodded when he heard the words. His expression had always changed little. At this moment, he was also slightly jaw-headed, and smiled softly, it's good to return home safely. The following battles have nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. After only a few joss sticks, the 5 supremes that have come together have been stabbed by the 4 chief supremes, such as Bloodwave and Giant Axe. They have never been hesitants. Once they have decided to take action, they will directly use the means of thunder and cut off the grass. After a moment, there was only one left over in the entire cold and dark universe. The 5 supreme masters had all died, and the star fields around the Palace of Life had been shattered a lot, turning into numerous meteorite fragments, suspended in the starry sky. Among them, only those 5 space battleships still stayed there, declared the defeat of the 5 major forces. Back to the palace. Gav supremely opened his mouth. Yes, Bloody Supreme and others were stained with blood, and the congratulations should be. Immediately, the class returned to the palace one after another, and the rest of the mess was solved by the disciples of their own life. After returning to the Temple of Life, far apart, Jian Wushuang saw that Lung Rushuang was leaning in front of the palace door and waiting for him, and his picturesque brows were full of worries for Jian Wushuang. Seeing Jian Wushuang returning safely, Her tight frown just slowly relaxed. Chapter 43-46. The battle between the Shrine of Life and the dragons swept the entire universe, and almost no one in the universe did not know this battle. Jian Wushuang heard the words and couldn't help but move in his heart. After he came out of the Life Shrine, he was non-stop on his way. He really didn't know much about the battle in the Life Shrine. But this does not mean that Jian Wushuang has forgotten this war because of him. In the entire universe, no one is more eager to know the results of this war than him, and no one is more eager to participate in this war than him. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang depressed the eager thoughts in his heart, making himself look like usual, and asked blandly, "What happened to that battle?" Master Zhu Xin opened his mouth with a smile and replied, "Don't abandon your lord, that war is over." Speaking of the Temple of Life is really tenacious. With so many top powers jointly struggling, the Chamber of Resistance has persisted for a long time. Jian Wushuang heard the words in his heart tightly. Listening to this tone, could the Life Shrine be unable to persist? Immediately, Jian Wushuang forcibly suppressed the trembling thoughts in his heart, and squeezed a smile on his face. "You talk carefully." He Xinzhu dominated Wen Yang and thought for a while, and nodded, "Okay, but I don't know much. They are all the most widely spread news in the universe." After speaking, the Master of the Heart slowly talked about the battle in the Temple of Life. She said to herself, when she said that the life and death of the Temple of Life was severe, she did not notice the complexion of Jian Wushuang next to her, and she had already become sad. Speaking of the White Tiger Supreme of the Life Shrine, it is really awesome. One person battles the 3 top supremes, and even before he dies, he kills one of the top supremes of the Taishu Temple. By the time Master Zun said that, Jian Wushuang's fists had been clenched, and his nails had sunk into the flesh, and there was no hint of redness. The White Tiger Supreme, he doesn't get along very much, but in his impression, the White Tiger Supreme is an extremely addictive and generous Supreme, and once shot with the Great Axe Supreme and others to save his life. Unexpectedly, even this White Tiger Supreme fell into this battle. Later, the Axe Supreme was attacked by the top 5 Supreme Extremes and was seriously injured. If it were not for the timely support of the Bloodwave Supreme, I am afraid that he has already followed in the footsteps of the White Tiger Supreme. The Master of Shinshin continued to say, when hearing this, Jian Wushuang only felt a sadness from his heart. Although the giant axe is silent and unspeakable, Jian Wushuang can feel that the great axe has the love from his heart. In Jian Wushuang's heart, the importance of the giant axe is also in the Palace of Life, second only to the existence of the Bloodwave. Breathing deeply 3 times in a row, both sides of the sword forcibly suppressed the throbbing thoughts in their hearts. Gradually, the Master of the Heart finished talking. She was just the ordinary master of the wild wasteland of the universe, so she didn't know much about it, only knowing the last thing: the war suddenly came to an end somehow, and supreme governance fell asleep. The White Tiger Supreme fell, the giant axe died with respect to injury, the Supreme fell asleep, and there are more dead disciples of life. Jian Wushuang only felt a heavy stone pressing in his heart, especially heavy. Because of him alone, the entire Shrine of Life was almost destroyed. My sword is unparalleled, and I am ashamed of the Temple of Life. Breathing a deep breath, Jian Wushuang made a decision at the same time. Dragons. Daewu Temple. Dairi Kingdom. Kaiyang Kingdom. Taishu Temple. Blood Temple. I have sword warriors in mind. Today, my sword Wushuang issued a great wish. In this life, if my sword Wushuang does not settle these 6 forces, I will not be human. The sadness faded, and a sense of killing was struck by Jian Wushuang, pressing his arms and legs in his chest. "No, don't abandon your excellency, what's wrong with you?" The heart-minded master who was chatting and talking next to him, saw Jian Wushuang suddenly feel extremely cold, and he was startled and asked quickly. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, his expression returned to normal, and said lightly, "It's all right. I do not dare to ask more," but I nodded and continued to walk towards the congenital Ding Huoqi with the sword Wushuang. It wasn't long before a large lake appeared in front of Jian Wu. He Xinjiang said, "Don't abandon your excellency, this access to the congenital Dinghua pond is inside the Great Lake." Jian Wushuang nodded his head without thinking too much. When he stepped on his foot, he suddenly blasted towards this big lake. After a muffled sound, the surface of the lake spread ripples, and the figure of Jian Wushuang disappeared into the big lake. Dominion dominated the lake for a long time, leaving the same, and went in the other direction. What she didn't find was that, a moment after she left, a tall, burly man in black stepped out to reveal his figure from the void. Bitch, this passage to the congenital Dinghua pond, do you think that only you know it? Even colluded with outsiders, come to the sect to steal the congenital Dinghua gas. I will report this to the Lord. I see how get it. And that boy, you dare to come to my holy place to steal the innate fire, you are dead. This tall and burly man with green eyes and small bones is running slowly, and his face is full of ruthlessness. It is Elder Laoshan who follows him all the way. His eyes flashed fiercely, and after thinking for a moment, he planned to turn away and report the matter to the Lord of the Holy Land. Gollum. Suddenly, there was a ripple of ripples on the calm lake. Boom. Immediately afterwards, the entire lake surface exploded, and a large hand formed by the towering divine power broke out from the lake surface, and fought hard towards the Elder Laoshan. The Elder Laoshan's face changed suddenly. He raised his hand and waved a magical power, blasting towards this big hand. However, the magic power of Elder Laoshan banged on this big hand, and it suddenly seemed to be like an egg hitting a stone, and instantly shattered. Then, the big hand was pressed down, and the Elder Laoshan was pinched, pulled back, and dragged in. Among the Great Lakes. Gollum. The lake was calm again, and nothing seemed to have happened. The bottom of the lake. Elder Laoshan looked at Jian Wushuang with a look of horror. Lips trembled. You, who are you? What do you want to do? Learn smarter in your next life, don't be so curious. Jian Wushuang glanced at him, and under the pinch of his big hand, he directly pinched this Elder Laoshan into a fan powder, which destroyed everything. After doing all this, Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent, as if he had only done a trivial matter. Gaze turned slightly, Jian Wushuang looked down at the other side of the lake, a vortex like a starry wormhole, in which a stream of heat continued to blow out. This should be the passage to the congenital Dinghua pond. Jian's footsteps slammed hard, suddenly like a cannonball, blasted towards this vortex, pulling a long string of white waves at the bottom of the lake. Still looking for free novel? Baidu direct search. It is easy to read a novel. Chapter 43-47. Gollum. This vortex is a long, narrow passage. After Jian Wushuang plunged into this vortex, he continued to blast forward. Gradually, he felt that the surrounding lake was getting hotter and hotter, and the front was even hotter. There was a flash of fire. I do not know how long it has been. Puff. Like crossing the temperature jump layer, Jian Wushuang emerged from the water instantly, and was shocked by the picture in front of him. After seeing through this narrow passage, the front vision suddenly opened up, and a huge furnace and fire furnace appeared in front of him. This melting pot of fire is huge, hidden deep in the ground, and countless blood-red flames sticky like water, constantly emerging, burning the void. This is all innate fire. The expression of Jian Wushuang's expression suddenly burst into ecstasy. You must know that he had only absorbed the breath of Otaki with the thickness of his fingers before he awakened the bronze ancient tripod. Later, he could not absorb the fist-sized Dinghua air, making the bronze ancient tripod again. Go up one level. Nowadays, this congenital Dinghua seems to be absorbed by the bronze ancient tripod. To what extent will the bronze ancient tripod soar? Jian's eyes twinkled, and in his ring, the bronze ancient tripod made a violent shock like never before. San. Jian Wushuang spread out his right hand, grabbed a glance at the furnace fire pool, and in time, countless divine power poured out of him, forming this congenital fire pool into a huge enclosed space. Subsequently, Jian Wushuang no longer suppressed the bronze ancient tripod, and let the bronze ancient tripod shoot out from the ring of Chenkuan. Hey! Suddenly, the bronze ancient tripod was suspended in the air, spinning continuously and making several long howls. The next moment, I saw this bronze ancient tripod as a monarch of fire, like a whale sucking water. Countless innate Dinghua gas burst out of the pond, and quickly poured into the bronze ancient tripod. 1, 2, 3. In the blink of an eye, countless innate auras of fire, intertwined with each other, came from all directions, with the bronze ancient tripod as the center. Bronze ancient tripod. It's dense, covered with sun, and mighty. Jian Wushuang blinked like this bronze ancient tripod, wouldn't it all the congenital Dinghua Qi here? You know, this aura of innate fire is the cornerstone of spiritual practice in the Holy Land. It's nothing. Shaking his head, Jian Wu sat on both knees, slowly closing his eyes, and the divine power continued to flow from his arms, refining the bronze ancient tripod. This practice is the passage of 3 years. Congenital Dinghua outside the pool. Xixin dominates quietly sitting cross-legged, Xiaomai frowned slightly. From time to time, she looked down at the blocked congenital Dinghuoqi, and sometimes she looked up into the distance, with a touch of anxiety on her face. It's been 3 years. Don't abandon your excellency, why haven't you come out yet? It was a bit of anxiety to dominate the heart. It had been 3 years since Jian Wushuang entered the congenius Dinghuoqi. During these 3 years, she had not seen the trace of Jian Wushuang, but she could feel that the Dinghua in the congenital Dinghuoqi Qi is decreasing at a speed that is visible to the naked eye. This made her heart start to tremble. If Jian Wushuang only absorbed a little innate fire, it doesn't matter. She came with the sword, and finally left silently, no one would find out. However, if Jian Wushuang absorbs too much, the result will be different. This congenital Dinghua pond is the congenital Dinghua Qi that has been hoarded since the Chaos Ages for tens of thousands of times. The Lord of the Holy Land repeatedly reported. However, in the 3 years she has guarded the congenital Dinghua pool, the congenital Dinghua gas consumed in the congenital Dinghua pool is full of a number of Chaos Ages in the entire Lingding Holy Land. With such a large amount of consumption, once things are revealed, even if she is broken, she cannot afford such responsibilities. Just as she was stunned in her heart, there was a sudden footsteps behind her. Who? Suddenly, the heart dominated. Elder mind, it is me, Lord sent me to get some innate fire. With the words, a boy with a gourd came in. My heart dominated when he saw the situation, and he could not help but feel a little loose. Fortunately, it was only the boy under the Lord. Well, give me the gourd. You can wait for me here. The heart dominates the expression pretending to be bland. Okay, then trouble elder heart. The boy grinned. No trouble. The heart-minded master smiled, and immediately took the gourd, and inserted it into a fist-sized hole. Suddenly, a steady stream of Dinghua rushed in, filling the gourd gradually. When the boy saw that he was okay, he said arrogantly, Elder mind, I ask the Lord, this congenital Dinghuoqi, is it all right? The domineering heart holding the gourd trembled when he heard that he didn't turn his head back, and a smile on his face squeezed out, I'm here in person, what can happen? The boy nodded his head. I didn't notice the strangeness in the voice of Lord Dominion, and said casually, Elder Minshin, do you know where Elder Minshan has gone? Recently, the Lord asked him something, searched the Holy Land, and didn't see him. Oh, Xishan is gone. He frowned. Yes, Elder Laoshan has disappeared for a while, and since you came back from the mission, everyone has seen him and never seen him again. Maybe somewhere to retreat. My heart dominated my heart, and for some reason, I felt that the news of Elder Xishan had a great relationship with Jian Wushuang. Probably. The boy is not suspected of having him. After a while, the heart-minded master will give the gourd to the boy. The boy immediately thanked him and waved his hand and laughed, Elder heart-minded, then I will not be here any longer, Lord is still waiting. Dinghua Qi. Walk slowly, then I won't give it away. After a while, the boy left, and his heart sighed with relief. Immediately, she looked down at the gate of the blocked innate Dinghuoqi again, and her eyes became more and more worried. There are still 7 years to go, and it is time to re-rotate. At that time, the Dinghua gas in the congenital Dinghua pool will be greatly reduced, and it will definitely be discovered. Time flicked, and 7 years passed again. Congenital Dinghua pond. The congenital Dinghua gas that had originally been in the ocean has shrunk in a large arc. In 10 years, the congenital Dinghua gas in this congenital Dinghua pool was at least 70% less. The bronze ancient tripod is suspended in the void, just like a gigantic beast, tirelessly devouring a large amount of innate Dinghua gas. Chapter 43-48. Hey! The bronze ancient tripod was suspended in the air, spinning slowly. All of a sudden, the thickness of each finger was like a serpent-like innate fire from the pool, and then poured into the bronze ancient tripod and was swallowed and refined. For a full 10 years, the bronze ancient tripod no longer absorbs the congenital Dinghua gas, and the congenital Dinghua pool, which was still not deep at the bottom, has almost reached the bottom. And the bronze ancient tripod that devoured a large amount of congenital Dinghua gas has suddenly changed its appearance again. I saw the original simple and glorious bronze ancient Ding, at this moment is covered with flame patterns. These flame patterns flow away and spread, reflecting the dark Ding body, a glamorous red. Bursts of power burst out from the ancient bronze tripod, and the power was fascinating and shivering. If it weren't for the divine power laid down by the sword, the power would be blocked layer by layer. I'm afraid that the whole sacred place would surrender under this power. In the void not far from the bronze ancient tripod, the sword sat cross-legged, his eyes closed, his black hair hanging down, like an ancient sculpture. In the past 10 years, his refining of bronze ancient tripods has been unprecedentedly fast, and he has fully refined the bronze ancient tripods by 30%. Even, he can try to control the innate Dinghua Qi in the bronze ancient tripod, and only one ray of innate Otsuki Qi. What is this concept? Ever since ancient times, no one has ever heard of someone who can control the innate 5 element. What is innate? It is the chaos, the heavens, the highest level of energy in the universe. This innate air of 5 elements can be used to assist in spiritual practice, and it can be used to comprehend and create your own power of the 5 elements of the day after tomorrow. For example, the previous 5 elements God, and now the Lingling Holy Land, are used in this way. However, it is impossible to directly control the innate 5 elements, which has never been done in ancient times. Or even if there is, but in the understanding of Jian Wushuang, it has never been heard. It will probably take a few days, and the innate Dinghua gas in this innate Dinghua will be absorbed. And this bronze ancient tripod will reach a state of saturation and consummation on the innate aura of fire among the 5 elements. Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a red mang flickered from his eyes. At the same time, he made a good decision in his heart, and after leaving the congenital Dinghua pond, he left a lot of cosmic source stones and law treasures as compensation holy shrines. His sword is unparalleled, and he never likes to take advantage of others. Since the innate Dinghua gas in this congenital Dinghua pool has been absorbed by the bronze ancient Dingers, he will find a way to supplement it from other places. Over the years, he has fought for the north and the south. First, he obtained the Taro treasures from the Taro ruins, and later scraped tens of thousands of years in the ancient road of Shinkong. The accumulated natural treasures and the source stones of the universe. Even some of the top extremes are worse. Therefore, he is also confident that the treasure he left to the Holy Land of Holy Land will never be lower than this pool of congenital fire. Congenital Dinghua outside the pool. My heart dominated his face, and he paced back and forth. Today is the time when the guardian of the congenital Dinghua is on duty in the Linghu Holy Land, and the elders who have come to the duty have been waiting outside for a long time. What can I do now? Ji Xinzhu turned his head and glanced at the black mirror that showed the total amount of congenital Dinghua Qi, and his face was desperate for a moment. I saw the congenital Dinghua Qi displayed on the black mirror, and there was only one layer left. Once she was seen by the elder who took the turn, she didn't need to guess that she knew that she was finished. Don't worry. What other fame are you doing? How long will the old man wait outside? Outside the congenital Dinghua Qi, the elder Yangbin who was in charge of taking over the rotation took over impatiently. Elder Yangbin, it will take a while, you wait a little. My heart dominated a smile on my face and replied loudly. Her voice shuddered. The elder Yangbin snorted and said, well, I don't care what you have to do, and the husband will give you a joss stick time. After a joss stick time, regardless of whether you agree or not, the husband will come in. After this sentence, the congenital Dinghua Qi was quiet and there was no reply. Tickle. Time is slowly flowing away, and the time for a joss stick is coming soon. The elder Yangbin, who was waiting outside the door of the congenital Dinghuochi, could not wait any longer, and his face suddenly became gloomy. Don't worry, the old man has to see. What are you doing? Huh. The next moment, his right palm shot fiercely, banging on the bronze gate outside Dinghuochi. The congenital Dinghua pond located in the Linghu Holy Land is like a circle that continues to expand. Each ring covers a ring. On each ring, the disciples of the Lingyuan Holy Land are defended by the Yang family. The core is located at the deepest place. Congenital Dinghuochi. Outside, it is the elder caretaker who dominates the stay. Boom. With the right palm of the elder Yang Bian slamming on the bronze gate, suddenly, a shock shaking, suddenly exploded. The intensity of this shock is directly in the entire Ling Di Holy Land, as if it caused an earthquake. Countless earths are split, and countless voids are crushed, as if they are in the end of disaster. The wind is angry, the world is discolored, and the world seems to be in chaos again. No words can describe the power of this shock. This is. The elder Yangbin's face changed suddenly, and he naturally knew that this shock was not all the inspiration in his palm. He hadn't waited for him to think about it. The next moment. A huge shock wave exploded from the congenital Dinghua pool, then swept away in all directions, and instantly smashed the bronze ancient door, then hit it severely on the elder Yangbound, smashing him close to 1,000 feet. What exactly is it? The elder Yangbin fell to the ground, terrified, exclaimed. In his horrified eyes, he saw a fiery red bronze tripod that burst out from the innate Dinghua pond at the core, and blasted away. Immediately, a flower bloomed in front of him, and he saw a young man wearing a black robe with fur on his face, but not appearing rugged, following behind the bronze ancient tripod and chasing it out. Slightly longer, and want to escape again? Jian Wushuang smiled angrily, flashing a cold mang in his eyes, probing hard with his right hand, and directly grasping the bronze ancient tripod that he wanted to escape. The next moment, the sword Wushuang cast the mystery of dragon's blood, tens of thousands of times the majestic divine power poured out madly, and suppressed this bronze ancient tripod. Boom boom. The bronze ancient tripod vibrated wildly, constantly trying to break away from the swordless hands. However, Jian Wushuang's 5 distinct knuckle fingers are like pouring molten iron. No matter how the ancient bronze tripod struggled, he stood still and suppressed it. The sharp sword energy erupted from between 5 fingers and was drawn on the bronze ancient tripod fiercely. Gradually, the struggle of bronze Jiu Ding weakened. Jian Wushuang felt the fading power in the bronze ancient tripod, and his eyes were even colder. Fortunately, he refined the bronze ancient tripod by 30%, otherwise he would rely on his own strength, and he was afraid that he could not suppress it. Bronze ancient tripod filled with the instinctive energy of mankai. Chapter 43-49. Now honest. Jian Wushuang gave a cold hum, and turned his right hand, and retrieved the bronze ancient tripod from the Chenkuan ring. Raising his head, Jian Wushuang couldn't help but stunned, and saw that the Lingling Holy Land under his feet had been transformed into a fragment of a wall under the shock wave of the bronze ancient tripod. Numerous disciples of Lingling Holy Land were looking up, staring at him dumbfounded. You, who are you? The elder Yangbin was paralyzed sitting in a fragment of the wall, staring in horror at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang said, a little guilty conscience. Da. Behind the sword, a rapid footstep sounded. Immediately, I saw that under the shockwave, there were also some embarrassed enthusiasts who ran quickly. Do not abandon your excellency. My heart dominated the chest and wheezed slightly. The elder Yangbin shrank his eyes, sometimes looking at Jian Wushuang, sometimes looking at the dominating heart, and finally seemed to understand something. His face changed. Okay. Don't worry, you colluded with outsiders and entered the congenital Dinghua. You are in big trouble. As soon as his voice dropped, he saw a stream of flames, dragging the tail flames, from the position of the 7 peaks of Lingzhu, and quickly burst through the air. In this flame streamer, there is a sound boom. In just a few breaths, the flame streamer appeared in front of everyone. Countless flames dissipated, revealing a majestic middle-aged man with red hair and 2 eyes of fire. Sir Lord. Meet the Lord. Suddenly, many disciples in the surrounding sacred holy places, as well as the elders who were dominated by their hearts and the elders who were bound by the heart, all kneeled down on one knee. This majestic middle-aged man is the contemporary Lord of the Holy Land. At this moment, Ling Di, the Lord's complexion, was a complexion. He first glanced at Jian Wushuang coldly, and then immediately fell on the prince, who said, "Take me to see Ding Huoqi first." My heart dominated, and no one knew better than her about the situation in the congenital Ding Huoqi. The congenital Dinghua accumulated in the tens of thousands of chaos periods in the pond has no drop now. She couldn't imagine how the Lord Ling Ling would fall into this state if he saw this scene. Yes. Taking a deep breath, my heart dominated the scalp. Then, the Lord of Hearts and the Lord of the Hearts walked step by step toward the congenital Dinghua pool. The congenital Dinghua pool is hidden under the ground, and the gate consisting of 10,000 years of ice and cold black iron has blocked the congenital Dinghua pool firmly. At this moment, the gate made of these two cold black irons has been completely blown open by a bronze ancient tripod, revealing a huge cave. Numerous scorching breaths emerged from this cave. Ling Ling, with a somber face, walked towards the cave, just looking down. In an instant, the Lord of the Ghosts fell like an ice cellar, his expression completely stagnant. Innate. What about Ding Hua? Next moment. Ling Ling's body shivered. In his eyes, I saw that the innate Dinghua was originally stored in the deep innate Dinghua pool. At this moment, it was empty, and there was no drop of innate Dinghua gas left. What about innate fire? A heartbreaking howl emanated from the mouth of the Lord Ling Ling immediately afterwards. He saw the Lord Ling Ling turned his head suddenly, and he looked eagerly at the Lord of the Heart and Sword Master, his body shaking with anger. You it. Boom. Immediately, a momentum of invincible burst out, centered on the Lord of the Divine Puppet. Ling Ling, Lord, was instantly furious to the extreme. Suddenly the main body saw the situation, and suddenly covered with cold hair, a row of fine cold sweat appeared on his forehead. As soon as she was about to speak, Jian Wushuang stepped out and stood in front of her. Your mission is done. Leave the rest to me. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly at her, then turned her eyes to look at the Lord Ling Ling. Shen Chan said, Lord, that's it, you listen to me. I said you. Ling Ling's lord looked pale, and immediately stepped on it, grabbing toward the sword unparalleled. At this moment, he had fallen into rage. Where could he hear the next half-sentence? A golden sharp gun suddenly appeared in the hand of the Lord of the Gods. He stepped on it, and endless flames appeared directly on his legs. Every step he took was a flame mark in the air. Go die. At the next moment, the Lord Ling Ling stabbed forward fiercely, and instantly, the golden lance was stabbed fiercely towards the swordless pair of skulls. Countless flames spewed from the tip of the sharp gun. Jian Wushuang saw a slight frown on his brow, leaping back one step, avoiding the thorn, and at the same time he said in a deep voice, Holy Lord, calm down first. I can't calm down. Ling Ling's lord is flushed with eyes and gasping. If there are not so many disciples present, I'm afraid he can't help crying. The congenital Ding Huoqi, but the linguistic Holy Land, has a whole number of 10,000 chaos times, and now, the whole 10,000 number of chaos times, all have made Jian Wushuang a wedding dress, disappearing. Who can bear this? After seeing the Lord of the Divine Lord roaring, he bullied himself again, and the flaming gold gun in his hand hit the banana like a violent storm and like a big bead and a bead falling on the jade plate, he shot thousands of shots instantly, stabbed sword unparalleled. Hey! Numerous gun shadows overlapped and intertwined, and each shot stabbed like a roar of a fire dragon, terrifying to the extreme. Jian Wushuang turned his head slightly, facing the dreamlike gun shadow, and appeared quite relaxed, avoiding them one by one. Until now, Jian Wushuang thought that it would be best to resolve the matter peacefully. After all, he had taken away the innermost part of the Holy Land. However, Jian Wushuang's blind concession did not make Ling Ling's lord give up, but instead he fought more and more fiercely. At the back, each shot of Ling Ling's lord had gone straight to Jian Wushuang's life gate. Endless. Jian was eyes narrowed, and his face gradually grew cold. Well. Now that I'm telling you well that you can't hear me, I'll convince you first, and then tell you. Talented, supernatural, puff. Instantly, a realm of power came to the audience. Under the power of this realm, the breath of the Lord of the Ghosts quickly weakened, and the breath of the sword unparalleled was skyrocketing. Gradually, the speed of Ling Ling's lord slowed down. The next moment, he stabbed a shot, and the flame gold gun in his hand was actually stretched out by Jian Wushuang and caught in one hand. Okay. Ling Ling's expression was stunned at first, then he roared, his spirit was surging, his hands pulled back. Didn't move. Tugged again. Still not moving. This. The Ling Ling Holy Lord froze, slowly raised his head and looked at Jian Wushuang. I saw Jian Wushuang grabbing the flame gun with his right hand and looked down at him facelessly. Chapter 4350. Jian Wushuang's divine strength is tens of thousands of times greater than that of Master Ling Ling. At the moment, under the blessing of the primitive universe, the gap between him and Master Ling Ling has reached an incredible level. Has it been enough? Jian Wushuang spit out these 5 words. Ling Ling's face turned red, and he couldn't say a word. Now that you've played enough, can you say it well? Jian Wushuang's expression was calm, and he released his 5 fingers holding the flame gun. Suddenly, the Lord of the Puppets, who was too late to pull back, was too late to react, his body fluttered, and he almost fell from the air. The Lord of the Puppets, who clenched his flame gun again, grinned again on his face. You took my holy ground, and now you are so embarrassed to tell me, do you want me to speak well? If you want this suzerain to speak well, then take my first move. Mystery, chi mai really fire. Ling Ling shouted loudly, his hands were fierce. Suddenly, the flame gun disappeared and turned into a golden flame. As soon as this golden flame came out, it suddenly seemed to burn the sky, turning the entire sky and the earth into a sea of fire. The sword unparalleled under this sea of fire is like a flat boat in the sea of anger, as if it would be swallowed by the sea of fire at any time. Go to hell! The Lingzhu Lord smirked, and his hands were torn again. Instantly, this golden flame turned into a lifelike golden fire dragon, each scale was shining, and the flames stepped on his feet. Go with! The Lord Lingling yelled and pushed forward fiercely. Instantly, this golden fire dragon arrogantly screamed at the sword, biting at the sword. Stubbornness. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He wanted to use Wu Crying God to smash this fire dragon, but it seemed like he had thought of something. Instead of pulling out Wu Crying God's sword, he turned his right hand and a bronze ancient tripod appeared out of his hands. The bronze ancient tripod was repressed by Jian Wushuang's divine power. The original mighty horse has been restored to its original shape, like an iron golem of Hei Bukiki. Just try your might. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed, grasping the bronze ancient tripod and throwing it forward, he immediately smashed towards the fire dragon in the proud world. However, in order to be afraid of this tripod, Jian Wushuang directly smashed the Lingzhu Lord into ashes and controlled the power, and only used less than 10% of the power of the bronze ancient tripod. Hey! I saw the bronze ancient tripod suddenly turned into a parabola, and hit it fiercely on the mouth of the fire dragon formed by the 7 fires. There is no obstacle at all, just like a sledgehammer hitting tofu. This mighty fire dragon was directly smashed by an inch, disintegrated, and turned into countless beach flames. This is not over yet. After the bronze ancient tripod smashed the fire dragon, a twirling spin, smashing again towards the Lingzhu Lord. What is this stuff? When Ling Ling's face went blank, he saw a black iron golem that rushed out of countless Mars, constantly enlarging in his pupil. In the end, the bronze ancient tripod drew a radiant arc to the extreme, and hit him straight on his forehead. What did I smash? This is the last thought that flashed in the mind of Lord Lingbai. Immediately, his eyes darkened and he passed out. Call out. The unconscious spirit lord fell to the ground and raised countless dust. Holy Lord! How dare you kill the Lord? Suddenly, countless disciples of the Holy Land and Elder Jiufeng who watched the battle yelled. It was just that they were full of embarrassment and impetuous appearance, but none of them dared to step forward, but actually faced sword unparalleled. Jian Wushuang seemed to be ignorant of them, and did not care about them, but looked at the bronze ancient tripod, and frowned, a light flashed in his eyes. This is the first time he has used this bronze ancient tripod to face the enemy. He has tried his best to control the strength of the bronze ancient tripod, and has used only 10% of the strength of the bronze ancient tripod itself. I didn't expect that even if it did, the sacred body of the Lord of the Gods would be nearly collapsed, and the spirit was directly occluded under severe blows. This is an invincible master. If he used the innate air in the bronze ancient tripod, would the power still be available? It seems that the strength of this bronze ancient tripod is far beyond my imagination. Thinking of this, Jian eyes flickered, and his thoughts were full of moments. After a moment, Jian Wushuang stretched out his right hand and grabbed it, and the majestic power poured out, and the bronze ancient tripod was captured back, and it was collected into the ring. Don't worry, your lord is fine. Jian Wushuang lowered his head and gave a glance to everyone in the Holy Land. Seeing Jian Wushuang's eyes, they shuddered in their hearts. They just finally saw it clearly. The thing that did not slip away and smashed the suzerain turned out to be a bronze ancient tripod. A tripod. This is too fierce. 1 month has passed. In this month, Jian Wushuang did not leave Lingling Holy Land, but quietly waited for Lingling Holy Lord to wake up. For Jian Wushuang, the Holy Land of Sacred Gods, although it is just a common force that can be destroyed, but he has never acted in favor of others. He said before that he would pay resources to make up for the spirit. Sacred place, then he will naturally say it. At the 7th peak of Lingling, there is a cliff overlooking the entire Lingling Holy Land. Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged on the edge of the cliff, silently comprehending the avenue. The master of my heart respected and respectfully stood behind Jian Wushuang like a servant. Since Jian Wushuang defeated Lingling Master a month ago with a trick of bronze Jiu Ding, she was completely convinced by Jian Wushuang. Don't abandon your lord, Lord has awakened this morning. Gongxin dominated complimently. Jian Wushuang's back was dominated by Xin, nodded when he heard the words, and stood up. Okay. Let's go and see him. Yes. After a while, Jian Wushuang saw the Lingzhu Holy Lord in the sovereign hall of the Lingzhu Holy Land. The sober lord, who was awake, was still weak, although his body was still full of cracks, but his face had recovered a lot. However, he was like a frosted eggplant, with a weak expression and a low sigh, as if he was aging for decades. He looked at Jian Wushuang, who stepped into the hall step by step. His anger on his face had disappeared, and it was replaced by helplessness. Sir, you have already taken the innate fire, and I am not your opponent. What else do you want to do? My temple is small and I can't stand it. The Lord Ling said helplessly. Jian Wushuang heard a smile and said, Sir Lord, don't you worry, I just came to pay you compensation. Make up. He was still frustrated, like the Holy Lord who frosted the eggplant, and suddenly came to spirit. His waist was straight, and his eyes shot bright. Chapter 43:51. Sir, how do you plan to compensate? Light lingered in the Lord's eyes, he said. Seeing the sword unparalleled, could not help but be a little bit dumb. If this Ling Di Lord had this attitude, wouldn't it be nice? After a pause, Jian Wushuang groaned 1 or 2, and said, 100 million source stone of the universe, 50 top magic drugs, 50 top magic materials, plus 10 finished top-level magical treasures. Jian Wushuang said slowly. Every time he said the same compensation, the Lord of the Lingering Lord couldn't help beating. After he finished speaking, the Lord of Lingering was already staring at Venus. This. Ling's Lord swallowed, his arms trembling with excitement. 100 million source rocks of the universe is enough to buy dozens of celestial holy places in this cosmic wilderness. 50 top-level magic drugs can even cultivate many ultimate dominators. There are also 50 top-level magic materials, and 10 top-level finished products are precious. It is pitiful to see that in this Holy Spirit holy place, he is the Holy Spirit Holy Master, holding a top rule of treasure. The Holy Land of Holy Spirit has really fallen for too long, and the slightly valuable things in the Holy Land have already been cleaned up by other forces. It's enough to make me sacred to the Holy Land and double my strength. The Ling Lord exclaimed secretly. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and said, Lingering the Lord, these resources that I have produced, even if they are not as good as that of the innate fire of Mankai, what do you think? The Lord Ling Ling groaned slightly. Even if he didn't agree, what would happen? Okay. Let's say that. The Lord Ling Ling bit his teeth heavily. Jian Wushuang nodded with satisfaction. Good. Immediately, Jian Wushuang surrendered a ring of heaven and earth to let the Lord of the Linghe clear up in person. After half a day, Jian Wushuang quit in the eyes of everyone in Ling Di Holy Land. Ling Di Holy Land outside the gate. Don't abandon your excellency, don't you stay long? He said with a bit of perseverance on his master's face. For some reason, during the period of following Jian Wushuang, she slowly developed a dependency, and a feeling of inexplicability and unclearness, not even her own. Wait. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly at her. After that, Jian Wushuang arched her hand and said, "Don't give it away, let's just stop there." The voice fell, and Jian Wushuang stepped on his right foot, and suddenly turned into a streamer, darting toward the starry sky in the distance, like a flatboat, sailing into the Xinghai. My heart dominated as Jian Wushuang disappeared into the sky's back, and there was a puddle on his face. If I leave today, I'm afraid it's a difference and there is no date in this life. In the vast sea of stars, Jian Wushuang, while refining bronze ancient tripods, was driving a cosmic boat, constantly driving into the depths of the wild wilderness. In the blink of an eye, 10,000 years passed. In this 10,000 years, Jian Wushuang constantly changed his name and changed his name, changed his appearance, and walked in the wild wilderness of the universe to collect the innate 5 elements. Under this 10,000-year collection, 4 of the innate auras of the 5 elements have been collected by him: Otsuki, Dinghua, Gungjin, and Haishui, as long as one more Cure Earth is collected. Qi, congenital 5 elements, you can collect perfection, and the bronze ancient tripod will also really open. It's just that the search for congenital aura is far more difficult than the other 4 congenital auras. Jian Wushuang searched for 3,000 years, and never discovered the news of the congenital aura. Therefore, Jian Wushuang simply slowed down and began to realize the avenue. In this 10,000-year period, he wandered in the secular world, sometimes like a scholar who traveled far away, sometimes like a Confucian old Confucianist, sometimes like a warrior standing upright, watching 100 wars, look at the forests, see the ebb and flow, and watch the lives of others. He saw the youthful spirit, the middle-aged calmness, and the old world. Jian Wushuang gradually found out that between life's drink and one peck, it was decided by heaven, like reincarnation. However, the more Jian Shuangshuang looked, the more he lost. Tao, what exactly is it? Just like looking at mountains is not looking at mountains, now Jian Wushuang has fallen into a bottleneck state. But Jian Wushuang knew in his heart that although he was lost now, it was the closest time to the road of understanding. Once he can really see the avenue of heaven, he will be like a nirvana born again, he will really rise up and realize the true meaning of the avenue. Thus, a glimpse of the opportunity to become the supreme divine realm, an unknown star field, called the Qianlin realm. Sword Wushuang turned into an old Confucianist, his hair was white, he was holding a crutch, his body was slightly sloppy, and he walked step by step on the official road outside the city. Cold as frost walked beside him, and also turned into an old woman with frosty hair and wrinkled face. In this 10,000-year period, Leng Rushuang finally broke through to the ultimate domination. The two hobbled forward, just like an ordinary old man. No one would have thought that any one of the two would have the mighty power to pinch the planet. Old lady, there is a tea stand in front of Let's Go to Rest. Jian Wushuang bowed his head slightly, looked at the cold frost standing beside him, and smiled. Well, old sword head. Leng Rushuang smiled back and looked at Jian Wushuang's appearance, and could not help feeling. Both of them are now the ultimate dominating realm. They will never die, and it is impossible for them to be whitehead to old. It's not bad to see each other's appearance now. They were not fast, just like the most ordinary old man, crutching, walking towards the tea stall ahead. The astral force value is not high, or the strongest in the entire astral area is just the main realm of the rule. With Jian Wushuang's current strength, I am afraid he can give this astral area blown out. Entering the tea stall, the owner of the tea stall is a half-elegant coquettish lady with a long-lasting charm. There is a 10-year-old child under her knee, waving a wooden sword, babbling, saying something I do not know where to learn from. Rivers and lakes black words. 2. What are you drinking? The owner of this tea stall was very kind, and when they saw Jen Wushuang and Lung Rushuang coming in, they didn't hate them because of their age. Instead, they respectfully pulled away the wooden chairs and helped them sit down. Just some coarse tea. Jen Wushuang said with a smile. Well, wait a second. The owner of the tea stall wiped the fine sweat on her forehead with a rag on her shoulder, twisted her buttocks, and went into the house to go. The boy with the red lips and white teeth under the knee of the owner of the tea stall was a little tired of the sword dance. He stopped, his black and white eyes murmured, and then ran towards Jen Wushuang. Grandpa, where are you from? Chapter 43-52. Jen Wushuang looked at the boy who was full of heads and brains, only to find it quite interesting. After looking at the cold frost, he joked and said, Grandpa and Grandma, come from outside the sky. Out of heaven? The boy blinked, his bright eyes blinked, and asked, where is it outside? Tianwai. Jen Wushuang thought for a while, and smiled back, it's a long way from here. At night, you look up at the sky, the farthest one you see. The stars are where my grandpa comes. The little boy heard the words, and suddenly pouted his mouth, shook his head and said, Grandpa, you bullshit. My mother told me that the stars in the sky are places where people can only go after they die. My father, who lives now on the stars. Jen Wushuang heard the words a little dumb, heard the second half of the sentence, and couldn't help but sighed slightly, reached out and rubbed the little boy's head. You are so smart. Grandpa told you a lie. The little boy heard the words, and immediately raised his head, and hummed a little proudly. Of course, my mother said, I am the smartest child in the world. Jen Wushuang heard the words, and immediately smiled, and did not speak again. And the little boy was of a natural age, and could sit down. He picked up the wooden sword and danced for a while. After a while, the dance was tired, and he ran over again, panting. Asked, Grandpa, then you came from far away, you must have seen many people, you said, is there a sword fairy in this world? Sword fairy? Jen Wushuang heard the words for a moment, then thought about it, and nodded with a smile and replied, Of course there is, Grandpa was once the sword fairy. Ah! Grandpa, are you the sword fairy? The little boy suddenly widened his eyes, and then looked up and down the sword Wushuang. He asked suspiciously, Grandpa, you deceive people, sword fairy all fly in the sky. Jen Wushuang smiled, I sent Grandpa saying that, he was a sword fairy before, but now he's old, he can't fly. Lung Rushuang heard the conversation next to her, and couldn't help but smile. She didn't expect that Jen Wushuang still had such moments of innocence. But she didn't say anything. As the wife of Jen Wushuang, only she knew that she was being rewarded by the entire universe, and the pressure in her heart was due to Jen Wushuang in the Temple of Life. If this allows Jen Wushuang to relax briefly, then why not? When the little boy heard Jen Wushuang's words, his big eyes were obviously full of unbelief, but he didn't know how to refute. After thinking hard for a while, he asked with his neck around his neck, Then that Grandpa, tell me, how did you become a sword fairy before? I will believe you. Okay. Jen Wushuang nodded his head, then raised his head to look at the sky, and there was a flash of nostalgic memory in the old and muddy eyes. That would have to be said a long time ago. The sunset was sloping west and time was passing. Jen Wushuang picked some interesting things to tell the little boy. He immediately heard the little boy's eyes widened, his expression was wonderful, his heart was ups and downs, full of longing. After a moment, Jen Wushuang stopped slowly and shook his head and laughed. Well, let's stop here today. It wasn't until the little boy passed a long time before he seemed to be waking up to his dreams. When he looked at Jen Wushuang again, his eyes were already full of worship. Grandpa, I'll tell you secretly, my sword practice will become a sword fairy like you in the future. He held the wooden sword in his hands tightly, his eyes were full of tenderness. As long as you persist, you will. Jen Wushuang replied with a smile. The little boy was happy for a while when he heard Jen Wushuang's affirmation. He even asked Jen Wushuang how many times, only after he got the sword's affirmation. After a moment, his eyes turned, as if thinking of something, and he was curious and asked, "Grandpa, what did you practice sword for?" Jian Wushuang smiled and just wanted to answer, but suddenly the whole person was holding back. "Myself. Why did you practice sword?" Jian Wushuang didn't speak, but he looked up at the sky with 1,000 thoughts in his heart. Everyone has a reason to become stronger, or in other words, call it obsession. With this obsession, go all the way forward, and dying without regret, you can open up your own way. So, what is your obsession? Sword Wushuang can answer this question. At the beginning, his devotion was to be able to protect himself from bullying, to find his father Jian Nantian, and to stay in this world. So, as the other party became more and more powerful, he became so muddled that he went through every level and made himself stronger. Until now, he has become the most powerful existence in the entire universe except the Supreme. But his sword is unparalleled, but after a moment, he actively wants to become stronger. What to do? No. Taking a closer look at all his actions is actually a counterattack against pressure from all parties. Even now, he wants to realize the Tao, to collect the innate 5 elements, and to break through the supreme divine realm, just to make himself stronger, to face the dragons, to face all the crusades his power. Then, if one day his sword is unparalleled and the universe is invincible, no one in the world can press him for half a point, wouldn't he not practice? Is it stagnant? In Jian Wu's eyes, a sense of confusion gradually appeared. His divine power began to get messy. Fu Jun, seeing as cold as frost, his face suddenly changed slightly, and he immediately swung his right hand to form an enchantment, wrapping her and sword unparalleled. She knows that Jian Wushuang is definitely enlightened and is now in a most critical stage. What she can do is not let anyone disturb him. Within the enchantment, Jian Wushuang fell into a puzzle like never before, as if sinking into the deep sea, sinking. He was completely lost. What is your own Tao? Time flicked, 3 days passed. Under this enchantment, Jian Wushuang and Leng Rushuang seemed to disappear into the world out of thin air. The two of them sat clearly in front of the tea stall, but no one could see them and touch them. This naturally caused another surprise. The little boy was so excited that he shouted again and again, "My dear, I have met a fairy." The tea stall owner also stayed a while, then quickly knelt on the ground, slammed her head 3 times, and even called the gods to come to the world. The sword in the enchantment is extremely critical. Throughout the ages, the avenue of comprehension failed, and then Daoshan completely collapsed, turning into a walking dead, a powerful humanoid machine, countless. Just when Jian Wushuang was about to collapse Daoshan, and to follow those people. Suddenly, a human face appeared in Jian Wushuang's conscious world. That's Genikai. Chapter 43-53. At this moment, the sword unparalleled, fell into a strange state. He was vaguely conscious, as if he was in a deep sea below 9,000 miles, and the power of destroying the heavens and the earth couldn't show the slightest. He could only continuously sink. His chest seemed to be pressed against a huge stone, which made him breathless. Tao, what exactly is it? This path is not heaven, but a path opened up by myself. The avenue is 3,000. Everyone's Tao is different. Some people have the absolute confidence of I'm invincible, and some people are the indomitable perseverance of the world is so difficult. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes, and his mind was chaotic. Just as he was lost in the middle of the road, a face suddenly appeared in the chaotic consciousness. This face is Xuani. Suddenly, it was like lighting a candle in the middle of a long night, and the dark world was full of light. Master. Jian Wushuang suddenly woke up. Instantly, countless thoughts flowed into Jian Wushuang's mind. From knowing Xuani to Xuani's efforts to protect him. The old pictures kept playing in his mind. This face is not the mark that Hunyi left in his mind, but the bond that he buried deep in himself. It seemed like a blink of an eye and a blink of an eye for thousands of years. Jian Wushuang's thoughts became clearer and clearer. After Shen Yi, he saw more and more faces. In these faces, there was Jian Nantian who had once been in order to protect him, and the Supreme of Blood, who was willing to die for him, and the cold and enthusiastic, and for the Gavra who was willing to fight the whole universe. There are too many people who have paid a huge price in order to protect Jian Wushuang. Human faces one after another kept emerging in Jian Wushuang's mind. At this moment, Jian Wushuang understood. As if clearing the clouds and seeing the bright moon, Jian Wushuang, who was lost in the Tao, was completely awake. Boom! Suddenly, Jian Wushuang's eyes opened, and countless gods flashed in his eyes. My word is the guardian, not only to protect myself, but also everyone who has protected me. I want to guard the master, I want to guard the cold as frost, and the temple of life. Dragons have inverse scales, and they die immediately. They are my inverse scales. And only by becoming stronger can I protect the person I want to protect. I can protect myself. At this moment, Jian Wushuang's eyes were clear, full of determination and unquestionable determination. Immediately, the sword unparalleled changed. First of all, his divine power became more and more pure, as if the jade had been stripped of impurities, and became bright. The biggest difference between the Supreme and the Master is the difference in the quality of the divine power. The supreme divine power unique to the Supreme is the supreme dependence of the Supreme above the sky, sitting alone in the clouds, overlooking all beings. And sword unparalleled, although his divine power did not break into the supreme divine power, but the divine power that dominates the realm, there is a difference between the cloud and mud. Immediately afterwards, he was full of breath, and the same change. I saw his breath of Xion to Zhang, first began to skyrocket, and then began to transform in an unknown direction. This breath makes Jian Wushuang look more transparent, purer and clearer. Let him raise his hands, full of charm. If someone notices Jian Wushuang at this time, they will find that Jian Wushuang now seems to be no longer an individual, but an avatar. Staring at the sword unparalleled is like staring at the road. Time passed slowly, Jian Wushuang immersed in the realization of the Tao, and the realization of the Tao began to go 1,000 miles. Similarly, he began to move towards the Supreme. In the blink of an eye, the time of a Jiazi passed. For monks, a time is nothing more than a snap. But for ordinary people, a Jiazi is already half of his life, enough to turn a child into a gray-haired old man. Cosmic wilderness, an unknown star field, within the astral realm. Early morning. A shabby tea stand on the official road outside the city has not yet opened. An old widower with a thin body and white hair with a mulch in his head, walked from Tianyang beside the official road, put a covered with yellow mud on his shoulders behind the door, and hit a cold basin. The well water washed his face, picked up a little yellowish white cloth next to the stove, put it on his shoulders, and began to spread a tea stand outside the house. It didn't take long for the tea stand to stand up and didn't take much time. Because this tea stand is too simple, move a few tables and wooden chairs from the house and place it outside the house. Then a stick is erected, and an apricot and yellow flag with the word tea is tied to the tip of the stick. The tea stand is fine. This kind of thing has been repeated for decades by old widowers. Later, he turned into the house and began to prepare some tea and groceries, in case there was a tea visitor at the door to eat. What he didn't know was, shortly after he turned and entered the house, on the tea stand outside the room, there was a sudden twist in the void, and immediately 2 young men and women appeared out of thin air. The young man on the left, with a beautiful and stern look, his black hair spread down, but those deep eyes were exceptionally clear, like the blue sky and the sea, as pure as jade. This person, it is the sword unparalleled after comprehending the avenue. The whole time of Jiazi Jian Wushuang is immersed in the avenue of understanding. If he used to look like a magic sword with the same sheath and was so sharp that he couldn't dare look straight at him, now he looks like a mountain in the distance and water in the distance. In the middle of it, people can't help but feel good at first glance. In the 60 years of this man, whether it is his breath of divine power or the realm of strength, earth-shaking changes have taken place. The current sword Wushuang, although it has not yet broken through the realm of the supreme realm, is far too much stronger than the previous one, and it is only a short distance away from the supreme divine realm. And the beautiful woman next to him was naturally cold. Jian Wushuang understood the avenue for 60 years, and Leng Rushuang was next to him. He guarded him for 60 years. Now, Jian Wushuang finally clears the gate, and Leng Rushuang has just removed the enchantment. Fu Jun, you seem a little different. Cold as frost looked at Jian Wushuang up and down, a little surprised. Is that so? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, then said with a slight smile, how is it different? Lung Rushuang thought for a moment and shook his head and said, I can't say it for a while, anyway, it feels like there is no fireworks in the world. At first glance, it feels very close. In fact, it looks far away. Jian Wushuang heard a bit of contemplation after hearing the words. This is all the influence brought by the Tao. I'm afraid that with his more and more understanding of the Tao, this temperament will become stronger and stronger. Well, when did the two come? Just then, the old widower walked out with a bowl of pastry groceries in his hand, and saw Jian Wushuang and frost slightly. Chapter 43-54. Okay. Jian Wushuang heard the words, and looked at the coward old man, and his face was suddenly slightly surprised. This old man is not someone else. It was Cheng Huan who was at his knees and shouted Jian Wushuang to tell him a story. He wanted to fight sword rivers and lakes in the future and become a fairy child with red lips and teeth. Unexpectedly, he just closed the door and turned out to be something wrong. The once naughty childish child has now become a grey-haired old man. I'm afraid that the owner of the tea stall, which still has the charm, has already become a cultivated nurse. Looking at this person now, Jian Wushuang has long lost his childhood innocence and is full of twilight. This could not help but make Jian Wushuang slightly sighed. The world is vicissitudes. Do you not recognize me? Converging his thoughts, Jian Wushuang smiled slightly at him. What? The old man heard the words for a moment, and looked at Jian Wushuang up and down. When he saw Jian Wushuang's clothes, his face was fair and handsome, and the whole man was full of gentleness and elegance. Immediately, the old man wondered, my son, is it old and you have seen it before? Before waiting for Jian Wushuang to speak, he shook his head and said, the son is extraordinary and very extraordinary. He has never seen anyone like a son in his life. If he has seen him, he will never forget it. Forgiveness and obscurity, I really don't recognize it. Jian Wushuang heard a smile and made a decision at the same time. Speaking of which, he can comprehend the avenue, he also has to thank the old man for asking casually when he was a child, and unlocked the key to his avenue. Therefore, Jian Wushuang intends to give him a chance. If this person still has a trace of childlike innocence and does not forget his young dreams, then Jian Wushuang will wear his practice path, and will start on the road of practice. If this person has long forgotten his dream of that year, then he will be protected to live 100 years old without worry and spend his old age. Stupid child, I ask you, is your wooden sword still alive? But you still have to move your sword, and want to be the name of the quake-riding sword fairy? Jian Wushuang looked at him and asked lightly. Suddenly, the old widower was trembling, looking at Jian Wushuang's eyes as horrified as ghosts. Are you the old? The old coward exclaimed in disbelief, and then slammed down on the ground with a slap, and repeatedly scratched his head. His life was gloomy and unpredictable. For him, perhaps the biggest episode in his life was Jian Wushuang, who told him the story of Sword Fairy when he was young. Even though time is running out, Xiaohua is no longer, and he has never forgotten the strange encounter he encountered in his youth. Even now in his wooden house, there are still carvings of the old man like Jian Wushuang and the cold frost, which is worshipped daily as a god. Get up. Jian Wushuang's expression was calm. He lifted his right hand up, and suddenly a soft divine power poured out, holding up the old widower kneeling on the ground. No need to bow down, you just have to answer my question. The old woodman heard the words, and immediately hit the spirit, and excitedly replied, Old immortal, the immortal words of that year, old. The junior can't forget it, even the wooden sword, the junior is still at home. After speaking, he quickly turned around and pulled out the wooden sword at the bottom of the box from the firewood house. The wooden sword at this moment seemed to grow old with him, covered with dust, and covered with moldy white fur everywhere. There are wormholes left by insect bites. The sword was unparalleled and nodded slightly. Well, I'll send you a fortune today. Come here. The coward old man heard the words, dared not to delay in the slightest, and immediately knelt down in front of the sword without double-sided, his expression as religious as a believer. Jian Wushuang stretched out his right hand and slowly pressed it on the head of the widower's old head. Immediately, a gentle divine power emerged from the swordless hands and entered the coward's body, washing his muscles and sacrifice for him. Puff puff. A trace of sticky black stinky juice poured from the coward's old body. These are the dark illnesses left by the widower's body for many years, as well as the aging cells and so on. The fairy touches me and grows up. For today's Jian Wushuang, reversing all life and death is really simple. The old coward trembled, and he could feel that he was like an old body filled with lead, and was recovering young and reaching the peak state at a very fast speed. A miracle. This is a miracle. The widower shouted from the bottom of his heart, looking at Jian Wushuang's gaze, even more awe-like. After a moment, Jian Wushuang retracted his right hand. Looking at the widower, the whole person has undergone monstrous changes. Although he is still old and his face is still covered with wrinkles, the spirit and energy exuding from his body are more vigorous than when ordinary people are younger. Immediately, Jian Wushuang doubled his right hand again, and a practice book appeared in his hands. Jian Wushuang said calmly, "The old man is dying, staying for thousands of years, and the martyrs are old age, with great heart. Today I will send you some good fortune. You only need to enlighten you day and night, and go up and down. You can open the door of longevity, and be a sword fairy you want to be when you were young. This is also a cause and effect between you and me. Thank you for the reward." Suddenly, the old widower was bursting into tears, and continued to slap his head toward Jian Wushuang, making a muffled sound of. By the time he looked up, his eyes were empty. The pair of immortal relatives had no idea when, in front of him, there was only one volume of practice exercises left in front of him. "Have you gone?" The widower was a little lost, then carefully put away this volume of practice. He put away the tea stand and closed the wooden door. From then on, in this unknown starfield in the wild wilderness of the universe, there was no coward old man, but a white-haired sword fairy. At the same time, a cosmic boat is fading towards the vast sea of stars inside the cosmic starry sky and beyond the unknown starfield. In a blink of an eye, the cosmic boat disappeared into this starfield. "Fu Jun, where are we going now?" Cold as frost asked in the spacecraft. Jian Wushuang groaned slightly, and then replied, "If I remember well, it will not be long before the Universe Festival begins." After a pause, Jian Wushuang continued, "I heard earlier that in the heavenly star domain, there was the birth of Shiliang, and we just went there to see if there is any congenital aura, and it is best to rush to the cosmic race before, collect the aura of the 5 elements of perfection. Because after the grand cosmic event, I guess there will be no time." Cold as frost heard the words, Liu Mai gently picked, wondering, why? Jian Wushuang didn't reply, but turned to look into the depths of the universe, where the top powers stood, and the corner of his mouth gradually evoked a wave of murderous Mori cold smile. Chapter 4355 Comprehending the Great Tao. Jian Wushuang looked at the strong-looking boy and found him quite interesting. After exchanging a look with Lung Wushuang, he jokingly replied, "Grandpa, Grandma, you came from beyond the heavens." "Beyond the heavens?" The boy was stunned. He blinked his bright eyes and asked, "Where is beyond the heavens?" "Oh, beyond the heavens," Jian Wushuang thought for a while and replied with a smile, "It's a place that's very, very far from here. When night comes, you can look up at the sky and see the furthest star from you. That's where I came from." The boy pouted and shook his head. "Grandfather, you're talking nonsense. Mother told me that the stars in the sky are places that people can only go to after they die. My father is living on the star now." Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was dumbfounded. But when he heard the second half of the sentence, he could not help but sigh softly. He reached out his hand and rubbed the little boy's head. "You're so smart, you even saw through Grandpa's lie." When the little boy heard this, he immediately raised his head and snorted with pride, "Of course. Mother said that I'm the smartest child in the world." Hearing this, Jian Wushuang smiled and didn't say anything. As for the little boy, he was at the age where he was naturally playful, so how could he sit down? He picked up the wooden sword and danced for a while. After a while, he was tired of dancing and ran over again. He asked while panting, "Grandpa, you must have seen a lot of people since you came from far away. Do you think there are sword immortals in this world?" "Sword immortal?" Jian Wushuang was stunned. He thought for a moment, then nodded and replied with a smile, "Of course there is. Grandfather was once a sword immortal." "Ah, Grandpa, you're a sword immortal?" The little boy's eyes suddenly widened. He sized up Jian Wushuang and asked with suspicion, "Grandpa, you're lying. Sword immortals all fly in the sky." Jian Wushuang laughed. "Grandpa, didn't you say that I used to be a sword immortal? But now I'm old and can't fly anymore." Hearing this, Leng Rushuang burst into laughter. She had never thought that Jian Wushuang could be so innocent. However, she didn't say anything. As Jian Wushuang's wife, she was the only one who knew how much pressure Jian Wushuang, who had a bounty on his head and the Divine Life Palace had suffered a great calamity because of her, was under. If this could allow Jian Wushuang to relax for a short while, why not? Hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the little boy's big eyes were filled with disbelief, but he didn't know how to refute it. After thinking for a while, he straightened his neck and asked, Then, Grandpa, tell me how you became a sword immortal in the past and I'll believe you." "All right." Jian Wushuang nodded and then looked up at the sky. His old and turbid eyes flashed with a touch of nostalgia. "Then I'll have to start from a long, long time ago. As the sun set in the west, time gradually passed." Jian Wushuang picked out some interesting things to tell the little boy. Suddenly, the little boy's eyes widened, and his expression was wonderful. His heart was full of ups and downs, and he was full of longing. After a while, Jian Wushuang slowly stopped talking. He shook his head and smiled. "All right, let's stop here for today." The little boy only came back to his senses after a long time, as if he had just woken up from a dream. When he looked at Jian Wushuang again, his eyes were full of admiration. "Grandpa, let me tell you a secret. In practicing the sword so that I can become a sword immortal like you in the future." He tightly held the wooden sword in his hand, his eyes full of young hesitation. "As long as I persevere, I will." Jian Wushuang replied with a smile. The little boy was overjoyed when he heard Jian Wushuang's affirmation. He asked Jian Wushuang several times and only laughed foolishly when he got Jian Wushuang's affirmation. After a while, he rolled his eyes as if he had thought of something. He then asked curiously, "Grandpa, why did you practice the sword then?" "Me." Hearing this, Jian Wushuang smiled. Just as he was about to answer, he suddenly froze. Why did he practice the sword in the first place? Jian Wushuang didn't say anything. He just looked up at the sky in a daze and a myriad of thoughts surged in his heart. Everyone had their own reasons to become stronger, or rather, it was called obsession. With this obsession, he would be able to forge his own Tao without regret even if he died 10,000 times. Then, what was his obsession? Jian Wushuang could answer this question. In the beginning, his obsession was to protect himself, to not be bullied, to find his father, Jian Nantian, and to survive in this world. Thus, as the other party became stronger and stronger, he muddleheaded and passed through one obstacle after another, making himself stronger and stronger. Now, he had become the most powerful existence in the entire universe, except for the Supremes. But he, Jian Wushuang, had never taken the initiative to become stronger. What should he do? No. Looking closely at all of his actions, it was actually just a counterattack to the pressure from all sides. Even now, he wanted to comprehend the Tao, collect the innate 5 elements qi, and break through to the supreme divine realm. All of this was just to make himself stronger so that he could face the Dragon Clan and all the forces that wanted to suppress him. Then, if one day, he, Jian Wushuang, became invincible in the universe and no one in the world could suppress him, would he stop cultivating? Was it going to stagnate? Jian Wushuang's eyes gradually revealed a hint of confusion. The divine power in his body started to become chaotic. "My husband." Seeing this, Leng Rushuang's expression changed slightly. She quickly waved her right hand and formed a ward, which wrapped her and Jian Wushuang. She knew that Jian Wushuang must have understood something and was now at the most critical stage. All she could do was to not let anyone disturb him. Inside the wizardry barrier, Jian Wushuang fell into an unprecedented state of confusion. It was as if he had fallen into the deep sea and was constantly sinking. He was completely lost. What was his Tao? Time flew by and 3 days passed. In the wizardry barrier, Jian Wushuang and Lung Rushuang seemed to have disappeared from the world. They were sitting in front of the tea stall, but no one could see or touch them. This naturally caused another wave of surprise. The little boy was extremely excited and repeatedly exclaimed, "Mother, I've met an immortal." The lady boss was also stunned. Then, she quickly knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times, calling for the arrival of the immortals. Jian Wushuang, who was in the ward, was in an extremely critical situation. Since ancient times, countless experts had failed to comprehend the great Tao, and then their Tao hearts had completely collapsed, turning them into walking corpses or human-shaped machines. Just as Jian Wushuang's Tao heart was about to collapse and he was about to follow in the footsteps of those people. Suddenly, a human face appeared in Jian Wushuang's consciousness. That was Shen Yi. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,